The first mention of Sarajevo can be found in historical sources from 1435. Citizens of different nationalities and religions have lived here for centuries. Sarajevo is the only city in Europe where mosques, synagogues, Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches stand so close to each other that calls for prayers echo through the city together. The modern history of the city was marked by the 1984 Winter Olympic Games, when Sarajevo had an opportunity to show its authentic and unique hospitality. The siege of Sarajevo started on the 4th of April 1992. It continued for 1,425 days. Units of the former Yugoslav National Army and Serb extremist paramilitary forces surrounded the city and launched an unprecedented campaign of terror against its 500,000 residents. Water and power supplies were cut, and the gas supply was reduced. The city started to run out of food. The aggressor fired at the city with all the weapons in its arsenal. Snipers located on the surrounding hills fired mercilessly at pedestrians crossing street intersections. In June 1992, the United Nations assumed control over Sarajevo Airport. Instead of terminating the siege immediately, their useless and shameful mandate was spent counting the shells fired on the city and delivering humanitarian aid, half of which went to the victim and half to the aggressor. This is the story of how the residents of Sarajevo survived these horrific times and defended their city. The Historical Museum of Bosnia and Herzegovina treasures the objects produced and used during the siege. Virtual models of these objects and their stories revive the atmosphere of struggling to survive in the besieged city. The limited quantities of food available in Sarajevo had to be prepared somehow, but with no water, no power, or any other source of heat. The residents designed various improvised stoves and cookers, using mostly firewood for fuel, but often anything else that could be called flammable. The city thus lost its parks, benches, furniture, books, music tapes, etc. Winters in Sarajevo can be bitterly cold, with temperatures dropping down to minus 20 degrees centigrade. An improvised stove was hardly sufficient for keeping warm rooms that had no window panes. All were broken at the very beginning of the war. Most of the windows in Sarajevo were covered by plastic sheets supplied through humanitarian aid, displaying a large UNHCR logo. The siege of Sarajevo continued for 1,425 days. It was the longest siege in modern history. In addition to horrific casualties, the city also suffered enormous damage in the physical destruction or devastation of numerous buildings and institutions. The town hall, a masterpiece of pseudo-Moorish style, was burned to the ground, along with the books of the National Library of Bosnia and Herzegovina that it had housed. All the Olympic sports facilities were destroyed, the cable car, numerous office buildings, and housing blocks. Still, nothing could destroy the spirit of resistance of the brave and proud Sarajevans. Bosnia and Herzegovina was defended. The war ended with the signing of the Dayton Peace Agreement in November 1995. The state was divided into two entities, one of which was given to the aggressor. The struggle continues, using civilian means. We hope that this virtual museum has brought closer at least some of what the residents of Sarajevo went during the siege. We also hope that these horrific events will never be repeated anywhere, for anyone.